My son, 23-year-old male, got married and had a child. He and his wife have been staying with my wife and me until he can find a permanent place to live. However, ever since he's been staying here, he's been acting strangely. First, he tells me his wife isn't comfortable staying in the same room as him at our house. I say one of them can sleep in the guest room, but that isn't good enough. So he asks if his wife can stay in my wife's room. We have separate rooms because sometimes we want space for ourselves. I tell him no, as there is a perfectly good and unoccupied guest room. He suggests using his older sister's 25-year-old female room, but I say no to that as well. He then suggests that one of his two younger siblings, 20-year-old female and 18-year-old male, give up their rooms. Of course, I say no to that as well. He's also been nagging his younger siblings to do things for him that he should be doing himself, like cleaning up after himself, doing his and his wife's laundry, and making sure the baby is fed. I'm trying to help him out as best as I can, but I'm almost at my wit's end. My wife is a surgeon and has a specific schedule while I run a business and have very flexible hours, so I'll often meal prep for her so she doesn't have to lift a finger when she gets home. The problem is, he has started eating all of the meal prep and gets mad when I ask him to replace the food he ate. He also occasionally eats his siblings' meal prep, but not as often as he does my wife's. He's always been more of a mama's boy, so I thought he was doing this for her attention at first, but I realize he never behaves like this when she's home. He tried to demand his younger sister babysit. She, of course, said no because she didn't have time as it was finals week. He told his younger brother to do it, and of course got the same answer. He then went off on them, saying that he needed someone to babysit at least twice a week. I said I'd do it, as I'm almost always free, but he was adamant about having his younger siblings do it. His reasoning was because they don't have jobs or children of their own, and so have nothing better to do. I shut that down and reminded him that college is stressful and they should be focusing on that. Plus, they have lives and friends outside of us. I get asking if they can babysit every once in a while because it's their Christmas break, but demanding they be available twice a week is ridiculous, especially when I have the most availability. I've asked him if there was a reason that he was doing all of this, or if it was something I did to make him act this way. But he always says he's fine. At this point, I'm thinking about telling him to find a new place to stay for the time being, because it's so stressful dealing with his behavior. I talked to my wife about it, and when she talked to him, she said she got the same answer. I just don't know what to do anymore. Now for an update. Thank you to everyone who gave me advice and shared their experiences of what happened to them. My wife and I decided to sit everyone down and have a talk. We decided to wait until our eldest daughter came home for Christmas, so she wasn't left in the dark. I didn't want to put too much information because I've heard it's easy to identify people on here, even though pretty much everyone is anonymous. They both have jobs, and their plan is to move out sometime in January. Before discussing it with the whole family, I asked my eldest if she noticed any changes in his behavior when they've talked on the phone, or if she knows about anyone in his circle who might have influenced him. I know it was a long shot, considering she lives a little over 5 hours away. She hasn't noticed any changes in their conversations. However, like the comments she mentioned, maybe he's been watching certain media and is upset about his wife making more than him. She also suggested borderline personality disorder, postpartum depression. Maybe he regrets getting married and having a child so early, or maybe he was expecting some sort of special treatment for being the first doing it at all. I also asked my parents if he was like this when he was staying with them in New York for college. They said he was the perfect guest. He'd clean up, do everyone's laundry, wash dishes, make dinner, etc. As for my daughter-in-law not wanting to sleep in the same room as him, she says only when at a parent's house and that it's a family thing. I didn't think much of it considering I also have hang-ups that would be considered absurd. My son said when they visited her parents once, they were not allowed to sleep in the same room, so there's not much I can do about that. During our discussion, we went over house rules, which are the same as always. Clean up after yourself, do your own chores, don't eat other people's food or leftovers, We will help out with the baby, but you are responsible for the bulk of the care. They are free to use my son's room and the guest room, but everyone else's room is off limits. And we cleared some cabinet space and fridge space for them to put their stuff. We discussed how he and his wife are solely responsible for their new life they've made together, but our family will always be there for them. We also put together a list of houses that are within their budget that they will be checking out after Christmas. Of course, we also talked about giving him the boot if he didn't go to counseling and correct his behavior. He gave apologies to everyone in the house and offered to take everyone out to make dinner. If the apology doesn't seem like enough, it was for his siblings and mother, so I can't really say whether it should have been accepted or not. It was up to them. Right now, everything's sort of going back to normal, and there seems to be harmony in the house again. I know this update isn't much, but I struggled writing it because of the private conversation I had with my son. Apparently, my daughter-in-law's parents have been pressuring him to move them into a house out here. They live in Chicago and claim they will file a lawsuit for the expense of the wedding, around $25,000, and custody of their child. I'm pretty sure if they do this, it'll be a waste of time and money on their part and would be considered extortion of some sort. But we will still be consulting a lawyer just in case. He hadn't told my daughter-in-law anything about this. When I asked him why he didn't talk to her about this, he said he thought he could handle it himself, but realized he just couldn't and didn't know how to tell anybody about the situation. For now, my daughter-in-law is handling it and my son has stopped responding to their texts. So that's what happened. Sorry if I missed anything. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He's not acting weird. He's acting like an entitled brat and is taking advantage of you while being a bully. He is disrupting the harmony of your home. He made some big decisions to get married and have a child. Now it's time for him to take responsibility for those decisions and act like an adult. I'd be showing him the door. Comment 2. These are the conditions for staying in our house. If you don't like these conditions, you are free to leave. If you refuse to follow these conditions, you will need to leave. There is literally no reason for you and your wife to tolerate any behavior from him that you don't want to tolerate. Now, for the update. 2 days after the family meeting, my son came to us with some news. He said he had found a place to live. I was honestly surprised it happened so fast. I mean, he is a grown man, so I figured he would have some sort of plan, but you never know with these kids. He mentioned that his in-laws were helping with the deposit. This made my wife and me a bit suspicious, but we didn't say anything right away. It was their problem to figure out, not ours. My wife suggested that we celebrate our son's decision with a family dinner. My wife is always the peacemaker, always trying to make things better within the family. I think she thought we should all celebrate the fact that our son had found a place of his own. We decided to go to a local Italian restaurant that has always been a family favorite. We have been eating there since the kids were little. We always took them there for their birthdays. Good food and good service. It was a place where you could eat and talk for hours if you wanted to. We arrived and were seated in the back corner, just as I had asked. The restaurant was empty since it was early, and I wanted some privacy. My son and his wife arrived shortly after us. My son looked distracted as he sat down at the table. He immediately pulled out his phone and started texting. His wife sat quietly, barely touching her food. I could tell something was off, but I didn't want to say anything. My wife was chatting away, trying to make conversation, but it felt forced. After a few minutes, my son finally put down his phone. He told us he had been getting texts from his in-laws. He read one aloud, suggesting they wanted to be involved in decisions about the baby. That's when his wife spoke up. She was upset about her parents' interference in their lives. My son tried to brush it off, saying they just wanted to help, but I could see that there was more to it. I noticed the tension building between them as they continued to eat. My younger daughter, who can be a bit clumsy, accidentally spilled her drink all over the table. It broke the tension, at least for a moment. My son's wife got up to clean it up, and my son followed her. I could see them arguing in the hallway outside the restroom. and I could hear some of what they were saying. My son was accusing his wife of not appreciating his family's support. His wife was arguing back about wanting independence from her parents. After a few tense moments, they returned to the table, both visibly upset. I tried to lighten the mood by suggesting we order some dessert, but it didn't work. That's when my son's wife asked if they could leave. She said she felt sick. My son insisted on taking her home, and they left us there at the table. I could tell my wife was upset, but I didn't know what to say. The next day, I got a call from my daughter-in-law's mother. She was very concerned about her daughter's well-being in marriage. I mentioned the dinner we had the night before and the argument I had overheard between the two of them in the restaurant hallway. She thanked me for the info and hinted that she wanted to step in. Later on, my wife told me that my son's wife moved out. I couldn't believe it. I had a feeling that something had happened between them, but I didn't know it was this. My son showed up at the house looking confused and angry. He said he didn't agree to the move and felt betrayed by his wife. I suggested that we sit down and talk about it, but he refused. He stormed off, saying he was going to confront his wife. That evening, I got a text from my daughter-in-law. She asked me to meet and talk about what had happened between them. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop near my house. The next day, my son came back to the house, furious after talking to his in-laws. He demanded that I take his side against his wife. I calmly refused, saying that I wouldn't get involved in their marriage. He accused me of not caring and left in a rage. I decided it was time to do something. I sent an email to my daughter-in-law's parents. I outlined the events of the past week and said they needed to back off. I didn't know what else to do. The email stirred things up, leading to a family confrontation at my house. My son came home one afternoon and found both families in the living room, ready to talk. To answer a few questions, my daughter-in-law's parents had been paying attention to their daughter's situation for a while. They were concerned about her well-being and the dynamics within my son's family. The email I sent prompted them to take action and confront both my son and his wife. Am I the idiot for sharing my fiancé's past trauma with my ex-wife and expecting everyone to just get along? My fiancée, Sarah, whom I love with my entire heart and soul, told me tonight she is done. She looked through my phone and saw texts between my ex-wife, Alexandria, and me. The reason I still communicate with my ex is that we have children. They live with me full-time and I am the sole provider for them. Alexandria and I divorced back during the infection 19 days and have since then moved on. Sarah and I got together last summer. Yes, I know it is fast. The texts between Alexandria and me are nothing more than typical things relating to the kids. Except on Christmas when my ex and Sarah got into a fight over her not wanting anything to do with my Sarah. We nearly split. She packed her stuff and had it all in her car after she met my ex for the first time when she came by to pick up the kids on Thanksgiving last year. My ex only wants to get to know Sarah better because she lives with me and my kids, but she is not having any of it. So Sarah took off, and I thought we were done then. I did know that Sarah would not want anything to do with my ex-wife, but I think it is unreasonable and not really possible with her acting this way. Well, during that uncertain time around Sarah leaving me, I told Alexandria that my fiancé had some trauma from her past and to not give up on trying to be cordial with her. Well, fast forward to today, Sarah grabbed my phone while I was away briefly and went through it. She has done this before, and I have nothing to hide, so I usually do not mind. Well, she decided that because of me telling my ex that information, plus the fact that she asked my thoughts on a birthday gift for one of our kids, that she is done with me because of it. Mind you, the text with me telling her about Sarah's traumatic past and the conversation about the gift were days apart, maybe more. We do not talk daily or anything. I am just not sure whether I should keep fighting for someone who is this insecure and is making this a major issue when it does not have to be. How can I remedy this situation? Names have been changed for privacy reasons. To add, spelling. Also, what I told my ex-wife was that Sarah was cheated on by her ex-husband by someone close to her. I did this only so she could excuse her behavior and try to look past it, and I did apologize for doing so. Also, I wanted to mention that Sarah is amazing with my kids. No issues there. I do see where a lot of you are coming from regarding the potential for future issues. To add, I have joint custody of my kids with my ex-wife. The reason being is that I did not want to keep my kids from seeing their mom whenever they wanted. My ex-wife walked out on us during the pandemic and left me to raise our kids alone. And I have successfully done so and continue to do so. I do not need a woman in my life to help me raise them. I wanted to have someone to love and be loved by, and that is what I got from Sarah. You all are jumping the gun by calling her crazy and a lunatic. Our relationship has been stable and very happy, except for her not wanting to have any sort of dealings with my ex. She is great with my kids, and they have a good relationship with her as well. Yes, we moved fast, but when you know, you know. Also, I am not one to sleep around or be promiscuous, so those saying I moved her in for that, you could not be more wrong. To add, this will most likely be my final edition until I post an update. I just want to address the fact that my kids are in school now and are not currently homeschooled. I did that in 2020 for 1 year during the pandemic because it was our best option at the time. Also, I want to mention that although I have moved fast in this relationship, it is not because of needing to be in one. I have been single for years, and I happen to have found the one who makes me feel complete in more ways than one. But in the meantime, I'm just going to let things play out and see what happens. If my fiancée cannot get her act together, then it will be over between us. I have been through too much in my past marriage to just fall back into something similar. It just sucks, you know? Oh well. Thanks to everyone that responded with grace and did not just come here looking to hang someone. Peace. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So you moved a stranger, and yes, a woman you've known for at most a few months at the time she moved in is a stranger, into your house with your children? When it's suggested to not even introduce your kids until you've been with someone at least 6 months? And you're shocked at how this woman you barely know is acting, which seems even more ridiculous because it seems this is nothing new to how she's been acting. Kick the stranger out of your life. Get some therapy, and maybe some parenting classes, or work with a child therapist to figure out how to appropriately integrate someone you're dating into your life when you have kids. Comment 2. Do not marry Sarah. You're only setting yourself up for a lifetime of headaches. Unfortunately, you alone cannot fix this. Sarah needs to acknowledge her wrongdoing and pledge to work on her behavior and perhaps attend therapy. It's probably time to move on. She's not the one for you. Now, for the update. Just over a week since Sarah ended things. Still trying to figure it all out, mostly focusing on my kids and keeping things normal for them. They lost their mom for a while, and I don't want them to feel like they're losing another mother figure, even though she never really was one. Had a few chats with Alexandria about the kids' needs, just making sure they're stable. Got a text from Alexandria reminding me about our upcoming co-parenting meeting, so I guess that's why I'm sharing this. We met up, and she started talking about how she felt about Sarah and everything that happened over the holidays. I reassured her about Sarah's intentions with the kids and their relationship. Alexandria said she felt weird about running into Sarah at the grocery store. I brushed it off, thinking it was just a coincidence. Told her we should probably focus on the kids' schedules and what they need. After that, I decided to reach out to Sarah. Wanted to clear things up and hopefully make her feel a bit better about our situation. Asked her to meet up, but got no response. That was a bit of a bummer, so I just focused on my kids. A couple of days later, my sister called me and said she needed to talk. When we met up, she told me she saw Sarah out with a friend at a local coffee shop. She said Sarah looked happy, which just made me feel bummed out. Decided to check on my kids after school. They seemed to be unaware of the situation, which was a relief. They asked if Sarah would join them for a movie night, which made me hesitate. Told them they should probably spend time with their mom, but it didn't seem like that would happen anytime soon. One night, Alexandria asked me if I thought Sarah would come back to me. I didn't know what to say, so I just shrugged it off and said I had no idea. A few days later, got a message from Sarah asking to meet up. I was surprised, but also a little nervous. We agreed to meet at a local diner where we used to go for breakfast. When I arrived, Sarah seemed nervous, fidgeting with her hands. She explained she'd been thinking about our relationship and wanted to talk. Just as we were getting to the serious part, her phone buzzed and she excused herself. While I was waiting, I saw a couple of mutual friends walk in with a new acquaintance. The new acquaintance turned out to be someone Sarah had mentioned as a coworker. Sarah came back looking flustered, and I noticed she had a new necklace. I asked her about it, and she deflected, saying it was a gift from a friend. The conversation shifted back to our relationship, but it felt tense and awkward. Sarah revealed she'd been seeing someone casually, which caught me off guard. I asked for more details, and she mentioned it was someone she met at work. She said she wasn't ready to commit to anyone, but wanted to keep things open. I leaned back, trying to process what this meant for us. I decided to share my thoughts about wanting a serious relationship, regardless of our past. Sarah seemed surprised, but we both agreed to keep communication open. As we left the diner, I got a call from Alexandria about a school event for the kids. I explained the situation with Sarah, and Alexandria offered to help with the kids' plans. I was surprised by her willingness to cooperate, considering our history. That night, the kids had a school presentation, and both Sarah and Alexandria showed up. An unexpected argument broke out between Sarah and Alexandria over a misunderstanding about the kids' projects. I felt like I had to step in, trying to calm things down. Sarah accused Alexandria of meddling in her life, while Alexandria claimed she was just being a good co-parent. The kids watched in confusion, caught in the middle. After the presentation, I had an urgent conversation with both women about boundaries. Things are still complicated. Sarah and I are trying to figure out where we stand, but it's messy. I don't know how serious this new thing is with her coworker, and part of me is still holding on to the hope that we can find our way back to each other. Alexandria and I have been doing okay, but with how things are with Sarah, I'm just a little worried about the kids. I'm really trying to keep them out of all of this and let them just be kids. I just want to make sure they're not feeling any of the tension. I'll make sure to post an update if anything big happens. Edit. It's been a few weeks since my last post. Things have calmed down a bit. Sarah and I have decided to pause seeing other people and focus on rebuilding our relationship. We're taking it slow and addressing our issues one at a time. The kids are doing well, and I'm grateful for their understanding during this transition. Am I the idiot for walking out on my husband after he dismissed my miscarriage in front of our families? My partner and I have been a couple for almost 5 years. I recently got pregnant while having an intrauterine device in place. It was positioned correctly and still good for another year. After I confirmed that I was pregnant, I informed my partner about it. He was just as confused and anxious about it as I was, and immediately suggested an baby unaliving. In the beginning of our relationship, we talked about contraception, whether we wanted children, and the possibility of baby unaliving if contraception failed. We both do not want children, and I told him that I would be open to an baby unaliving. However, I said that I could not promise I would be able to go through with it emotionally once it happened. After days of worrying and being scared, I realized that I would not be able to go through with an baby unaliving if the pregnancy was viable. He was confused and a bit angry. He said he does not want a child forced on him. I said that there is never 100% certainty of that, since even an baby unaliving could fail or not be possible anymore, depending on when you find out about the pregnancy. I also told him that I did not plan on feeling this way, but that I simply could not do it anymore. The pregnancy did not grow as expected, and initially my doctor thought it could be an ectopic pregnancy, but I ended up having a miscarriage at 6 weeks. My partner is very relieved now, but the discussion has left a rift in our relationship. I am not sure I can trust him anymore to be there for me if something goes wrong again, and he does not trust me anymore since I changed my opinion so drastically. He also said that if I cannot go through with an baby unaliving emotionally once I am pregnant, we simply need to decide in the future before it happens, as if I could simply stop my emotions because I decided so beforehand. I also feel very alone in my sadness right now, as I am still going through the miscarriage. He does not really understand the pressure and feelings I am experiencing, from confusion to hurt, sadness, and grief, but also relief, and on top of all this, the physical strain it has on my body. How can we move on from this? I still do not want children, but I would not be able to have a baby unaliving if contraception failed again. Is there even a way forward after such a significant change? Almost forgot. In my country, baby unalivings are legal until 12 weeks after an in-depth counseling session. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I don't understand. You said you still don't want children. If you get pregnant again, are you going to put those kids up for adoption? Or are you going to keep a child you don't actually want? I think your partner has made himself clear that he doesn't want children. But it doesn't seem like you know for sure what you want. Having a baby unaliving, giving birth, and giving a child up for adoption are all not easy things to do. Comment 2. I feel for you, I do. But as a child-free woman, I side more with your husband. He shouldn't have to have your back and what? Stay? If you make a solo decision to change the course of both your lives that you seem to be agreeing with, maybe you two shouldn't be together since you would want to have a child if that were to happen. Now for the update. A week after the miscarriage, my partner suggested a dinner with both sets of parents to help with the tension. I rolled my eyes at the idea of a dinner party fixing everything, but I was willing to try anything. The dinner was at my parents' house, which was decorated for fall with pumpkins and fairy lights. My mom always went all out for the seasons, and as much as I loved it, it only made things worse. Everything was so beautiful and cozy, and here we were, a mess, trying to pretend we were fine. The atmosphere was light at first, with everyone sharing stories about their week. I was glad to see my mom and dad smiling. They had been so worried about me, and I didn't want them to feel even more stressed out because of us. My mom's voice broke through the chatter as she casually asked about our plans for the future, specifically about kids. My partner quickly reassured everyone that we weren't having kids anytime soon. His tone felt dismissive, like he wanted to brush off my mom's question and pretend like we weren't sitting here with a huge issue. After dinner, we all gathered in the living room for dessert, and the conversation shifted to Jake and Rachel's upcoming baby. My sister Kate made a joke about how we should take notes from Jake and Rachel. The room went silent for a second, and I could feel the tension rising. My partner laughed along, but I just wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. I excused myself to the kitchen, needing a moment away from the conversation and the pitying looks. While in the kitchen, I overheard my partner discussing the pregnancy with my mom. He claimed I was being overly emotional and needed to get over the miscarriage. Those words cut deep. I was standing there, listening to him talk about me like I was some kind of crazy person, and I just lost my baby. When I returned, I confronted him in front of everyone about what he said in the kitchen. He brushed it off, insisting that he was just trying to lighten the mood. My dad, sensing that things were getting out of hand, awkwardly changed the subject to sports. My partner then accused me of being dramatic and ruining the dinner. I suggested that we discuss the issue later, but he insisted on talking right then. The argument escalated, leading to him threatening to leave if I didn't stop acting like a victim. At that point, I just wanted to get away from him. I decided to drive home alone, leaving my partner to take an Uber back with my family. The next day, my partner texted to apologize, but I could tell it was insincere. I decided to meet up with a friend instead of responding. I needed to vent and get away from this never-ending conflict. At the cafe, I shared everything with my friend, who suggested that I stand my ground. She was always so supportive, and I really appreciated her advice. The friend helped me see that I wasn't the one in the wrong here. When I returned home, I found my partner packing a bag, preparing to stay at a friend's place for the weekend. He claimed he needed space to think about the relationship. That felt like a threat to me. Instead of panicking, I calmly packed my own bag and made plans to stay with a relative. The look on his face was priceless. He was shocked that I was also making plans to leave. The next week, I got a call from my partner's mom, expressing concern about our relationship. I used the call as a chance to share my perspective, surprising her with my honesty. She had always liked me, and I could tell she was a little shocked at what I was saying. I found out that my partner had been discussing the situation with his family, but not sharing the full story. This revelation led me to decide that I needed to confront my partner about his dishonesty. When we finally met up, I laid out everything that had been said, leaving no room for evasion. He initially tried to defend his actions, but ultimately agreed to take a break from the relationship. Edit. My partner and I are officially on a break. His mom called to check in on me, and I shared everything that happened. She was supportive and offered to help me move my stuff into storage. I'm considering ending the relationship, but I want to take my time with this decision. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.